Oh, thank you. We're left with sabag. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm about to board in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Stick to your left.
Per minute.
Wherever I could listen, I listen.
Line 9 o'clock.
Okay. Very good. Wow. Okay, we'll do a shtickle on the Lakutei Levi Yitzchak. It has a shaykhs with the Sicha we learned about Yosef HaTzadik that B'terem Tov Ishnasero Yosef Yulad B'terem we learned 2-3 weeks ago. It's a little bit of it's a geschmackish shtickle, and because you might not be for the whole thing, so I'm just going to give an overview on the whole Nekuda. That there is a like a triple lashon in Zohar. The Rebbe's father was every word in the Zohar is Kodesh Kadoshim, and the emphasis a lot of times in the Zohar when you read just the Zohar, it looks like it repeats itself. But versteht sich that every word in Zohar is meduyik. Befrat tonight that we want to dedicate the shir. Lachovid, the Meir Ranis, Zachron Levrocha, who's a big Indian and whole life was teach Chassidus. Every word in Zohar is exact, and we see that over here, also here about the bris. There's we'll read it soon. There's 3 lashonis. The Rebbe's father says like this: bris, the word bris, kayadu in all the Sforim HaKadoshim, that bris is numerical value of 212. So it counts like all the mitzvahs put together. It's simple. Tov and Reish, you already have 600.
Top is 400.
Tov is 400, Reish is 200, Beis and Yud is 12, so it's 612, right? So you got 612. Tzaddik, what's tzaddik? Tzaddik is the tzaddik and the Yud is 100, and the 100 is 100. So you have 200. Daled is 4. So 204, 3 times 204, what do you end up with? 612. So 3 times tzaddik is 612. I'm going to do reverse. So today I'm giving a hagdoma. So if you go on the plane, it's schon wissen the ganze Wort, spätestens kann lernen befrotus. So I'm telling the answer before the kasha. That the answer is that in the Bechinas Habris, there's 3 as unbelievable. The Rebbe's father, it's a little graphic, but the Nakuda is like this: that the Eiver Abris has 3 parts. There is the Shlisha Tachten, the Shlisha Mtzoi, the Shlisha Elyon. The Shlisha Tachten is covered through a skin by a baby, and the father himself, or he gets a moil as a mitzvah to cut off the foreskin. There is a molv like pora. There's a mila and there's priya, and that's a mitzvah to uncover that Shlish. Again, the kitzah will read it soon inside. Every Yid does this. Even today, the Rebbe spoke to Sicha, the Rebbe spoke about the fact that in Russia, at that time, in the late 70s, that there were people that already, the Zaydet Technisch gelernt in Cheder. The Zaydet Technisch gelernt in Cheder. They didn't know the Tzura Aleph base. And Lechoida, to have a bris was a big danger. Because all they need is once that the chaver is with them in camp or in the swimming pool, v'chulu, when they see that the kid has a bris, this is not America. These Europeans, none of them did bris for medicinal reasons. So right away it's a jid. It's a jid. Right away the father loses the job. What is he going to go to another company? It's all controlled by the government. So it was a Mesidus Nefesh Mamish to have a bris. It was a Sidus Nefesh Mamish to have a bris. I was mentioning the other day, I went to my children to visit the Bobby on Hanukkah. She's getting a little older. So a lot of you see she's living her childhood. It's interesting. Some people in the Mamish from the...
Every old guys think the best.
I think it's normal. Yeah.
They had an article that people are revisiting Germany because of the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Shooting and
Yeah. So she was saying her father. She remembers her father was an unbelievable moyel. it was a chassid, Rabbi Yitzchak Shagalov. It was said that Frierdiker Rebbe did something symbolic. We used to say symbolic, but he called 9 chassidim for a special meeting, and he made a bris with them that they're going to go into the last drop of blood. It is said that only Frierdiker Rebbe himself and one of those survived. All the other hundreds of thousands, but he made a krisis that everyone's made krisis bris. We don't know for sure because no one was there and there's no written documents. But one of the other people that we know said that Maizeda was one of them, and he was they were a Litvish family, or that's his name. Yitzchak was named after Yitzchak inspector, and he was dafke in his young age. He learned to be a doctor. He was trained to be a doctor. Yeah, and the final exam was supposed to be on Shabbos, and the Rishoyim Arudim they tried to make with him a deal. He'll come here. He's chas v'shalom. He's not making believe Shabbos. He said Shabbos. So they said, okay, you're not going to come Shabbos. You're not getting your degree. Okay. He said, I don't need a degree. Degree. He was taka kol yomov. He didn't have parnasa, but he didn't care. But one thing, he was taka angenommen, and even by people that were not religious. And this we're talking about in the 20s already in Russia, that there were plenty of Jews that were not religious, but they wanted a good moil. And he would dress up, my grandmother would describe, he did his laundry, and he would dress up like a doctor. He'd come, and before he would in the house, he would sterilize all the kalim, he came as a doctor. So he came to a house, and there were people there. So he started screaming, well, I'm not making any bris. He walked out of the house, and when he saw that everyone left, he came back and he did the bris. So it was such a pachad that he figured this is too much ayin hara. This is definitely, So we have people that are now in Beis Menachem Mendel. We have a Yid that now lives in Atlanta. Came to America with his father. He wanted to have a bris. They lived in Chmelnytsky. They didn't know Aleph Beis, didn't know Izay that Shenishka was kind of Aleph Beis. It's an unbelievable thing. He had a Yisodus, he wanted to have a bris, he wanted to have it without local anesthesia.
Wow.
And
as an adult.
Yeah, as an adult. And then he was adult, whatever, he was 8 years old. Alex Badner. I'm telling his name because he'll tell you the story like I'll tell you the story.
Guitar guy.
Yeah, guitar guy. And that was the only time he met the Rebbe. He was not religious. He wanted to have a bris. Mamish not religious. He wanted to have a bris, and he didn't know organization. It was the Chabad that took care of it, and they used to every Sunday. Whoever had a bris, they would bring a special group to the Rebbe to get. So he got $1 from the Rebbe. He says he used the $1. But wachtest the bracha
$1,000 for it.
the bracha he got. The bracha stayed with him forever. So the first thing that Rebbe's father said, every Jew. You go today at Tzaddik, you go to the bagel store, the Mexican says, Tzaddik, what do you want?
Yeah.
So, but we know from Tanya, Tzaddik is a big thing. Halavai Tzaddik. Chassidim said, Halavai Beinani. Halavai Beinani. By the way, it's time it dawned on me yesterday, because we said that a Beinani is B'shas the Tefillah, he doesn't realize that he even has it out, because his soul is full with Avas Hashem. So nidme be'enov that he's really a tzaddik, but the lashon and the Gemara is halavai sheispal odem kolim kuli. That's why look at tefillos, but that's a lashon in the Gemara. Halavai sheispal odem kolim kuli. That's the lashon that the Chassidim said. Halavai beinani, halavai. It's a lashon. So it's interesting. It's a lomdus in this lashon. Halavai beinani. So just because you go and you buy a bagel and the bagel starts to Gemara not tzaddik. So the answer is like this. Every Yid, because in the level of bris, which a bris is very strong, there's 3 parts to the bris. First is the ma'aseh b'poel, cutting off the foreskin, if the baby is 8 days old, and if not, if chas v'shalom wasn't done, every Yid has to do it. The din is that every Yid is called kilu mol. Even if he didn't have a bris yet, it's a technical thing. Don't worry, he'll get the bris done tomorrow. And we see b'poel mamash today, even today, with all this of malach tahin and these not religious Jews, and they make jokes ahin and makes jokes ahin. I remember I was once somewhere and I picked up, it was a Time magazine. The last page, it was a guy at I don't know who he is, but he wrote a whole article how he was against. They had a son, and he's the chalinke, and his dachahin and zachaher and his azay is ayav and sokarain. He is not having a bris for a son. He is not having a bris and a son. To everything is a guy. I could probably put in Google. I remember the guy's name, so I can find the article in a second. He is not having a bris. The whole argument was, at the end of the article, they had a baby, and his wife said, if you know what's good for you, Hakmanish and Chinik, the baby's having a bris. That's the end of the article. So this didn't help, all this shit, this and everything. His wife said, step aside, do your own things. You could write whatever you write. You could say whatever you say. You think you're a really fancy guy and you write for Time magazine. My son is having a bris.
Yeah.
So a bris is, that's why every call is called, the Soya says, how could every Yid called a tzaddik? Plenty of Yidden speak Lashon Hara or do things that are even worse than Lashon Hara. But because every Yid, even to this generation, we see that by and large, Yidden are still doing the mitzvahs of bris, even though they know zero by Yiddishkeit. So that's why every Yid is called a tzaddik. And the Rebbe's father is a beautiful word. The Eretz Yisrael is called a matana and a Yerusha. And in connection with doing the bris milah, Eretz Yisrael is called a Yerusha. Why? Because the din is al pi din, matana yesh lo hefsek. Yerusha ein lo hefsek. It's a halachic concept, whatever. Yerusha, you give a matana, you could say Reuven gets the matana for 10 days and Shimon gets it. Nah, Yerusha, if you give your oldest son or whatever this amount, you can't, that's it. Ein la'achar of klum, it belongs to him, it's all Yerusha, and ein la'hefsek li'olam. So, because every Yid has the inyan of bris, v'amach kulam tzadikim, every Yid is la'olam yirshu, v'amach kulam tzadikim. Why is every Yid a tzaddik? Because of Tanya, mitzad Tanya lavayit bi'abeni. Mitzad the inyan of bris, every Yid is a tzaddik. Therefore, la'olam yirshu aretz, they get the Yerusha of Eretz Yisrael, the inyan of Yerusha, which ein la'hefsek. Then there is the middle part of the Aver, which even a baby, when it's born, that doesn't have a foreskin. But which part is Nazgala from the middle part is B'shas HaKishrei. So what's Shmiras Aviris, which is, by the way, Gavorcha, we're talking now, Minig Yisrael, Shmois Ve'er B'Vishalos, to focus on the Agam Chabad, so not so much the making signs on the walls, but it doesn't change. The mitzvah stays the same. The focus is the same, that when a Yid is careful not that the seed should chas v'shalom not be zeralavatolo, not be sasudas, so that the kedusha is nimshach on the shlisha emtzoi. So right when the baby is born, 8th day when the parents do the bris, the kedusha is nimshach on the shlish hatach. That's the first darg of tzaddik. The second darg of tzidkus is when a person grows up and he hit the ois bris kodesh. That's the middle part. And then the Shlisha Elyon, which is mechubet to the goof, that is when a person is nizir, everything is kosher, he's with his wife, and he's loyal, now it's a good stuff. But he does it in the way of Kedusha. So because he does it in the way of Kedusha, he's mamshech on himself the third darga of Kedusha. That's why 3 times tzaddik is the inyan of bris. Because the full thing of bris is 3 times tzaddik. The first time you're tzaddik is when you get the bris when you're 8 days old. Second time you're tzaddik when you're nizir from shich v'zer levatolo, and that could be even a boy who's young until he gets married. And then after that, then he gets married, that he has the opportunity not only to be with his wife for pleasure alone, but also to exercise that the union with him and his wife should be on the foundation of kedusha. Let's read it inside. Wow, you're taking us into the plane with you? Gewaldig.
Is it small?
Yeah, it feels good to be on JetBlue.
Amen.
Yeah, it's in the plane.
Unbelievable. Begin the is Gazru. It's in the beginning of this week's Parsha, that I made a bris to give them Eretz Canaan. As you see, the Zohar is going to read this word bris not only as a covenant, but also kipshut, that the covenant to give them Eretz Yisrael comes because of the schus and the mitzvah of a bris milah. Begin this is Gazru, that the receiving Eretz Yisrael is in the schus of cutting off the foreskin from the baby. V'chol man dis gazer, every person that cuts off the foreskin, yoris ares bizoichet to yash in the land, the ho, lo yoris are el tzaddik, because you can't yash in Eretz Yisrael unless you're a tzaddik. V'chol man dis gazer, ikrik tzaddik, and whoever cuts off the foreskin is called a tzaddik. T'ksiv amech kulam tzaddikim lo elam yishu aretz. That because the Yidden are all tzaddikim, as we'll say soon, by and large, every Jew will give even if they're not religious, they're going to give their son a bris. Therefore, every Jew is called a tzaddik, and therefore, amech kulam tzaddikim la'elam yeshu aretz. Then the Gezerah continues. So now everything is said. All of a sudden, the Gezerah is going to repeat itself a second time and a third time, seemingly. And that's going to be the answer that Rebbe's father, that there's 3 dagas in bris. Kol man dis gazer, everyone that cuts. V'notir hai oz kayama. He adds words over here, the Zohar. Before he said, Kol man dis gazer, yoris are. If he cuts the foreskin, he gets there. Kol man dis gazer, not only is gazer, v'notir hai oz kayama, and he guards this bond with the Eibishter, Ikrit Tzaddik is called a tzaddik. Period. A third time, the Zohar is going to say the same thing. Tochazi, come and see. Min Yosef, the Kol Yoimei, Lo Ikrit Tzaddik. Yosef was not called a tzaddik when he was born. When was he called a tzaddik? Ad noterahu bris oz kayama kadisha. He wasn't called Yosef a tzaddik until he had a challenge, like with Tiferes, with the husband wanted to sleep with him and the wife wanted to sleep with him, and he was loyal to the Eibishter. And because of that, he guarded his bris. Ad noterahu bris oz kayama kadisha. Even the noterlei, now that he guarded his bris, ikri tzaddik, Yosef tzaddik. Okay, so in the simple reading of the Zohar is a little bit repetitive. Now, let's read quickly the Rebbe's father. Kan Yerushas Oretz Noket Rag dis Gaza, V'achkech Noket is Gaza V'nota. First, in the first time, and the second line here, it says Kol man dis Gaza, whoever cuts. Then he says cuts and guards. V'nokom Hosam Hai Oskayam Ubiyoisa, which is the third thing. Noter the Noster Ahi Loi Hai Bris Umakoidam Loi Noket Bris Oskayam Kadisha. So we say the same thing 3 times, and each time we're adding a few words. What's going on over here? Yesh lefarish bris gematria gimel pamim tzaddik. Bris is 612. Tzaddik is 204. And if you have 200, 200, 206, and then you have 4, 4, and 4 is 12. So it's 612. So yesh lefarish bris gematria gimel pamim tzaddik. V'hula neged the gimel shlishim shesh b'yisoid v'sidir malamata lamayla. Tiferes which is brought in Mishnah's Chassidim. From Yehuda Achosid. Beis etzam hayesoid shelamata matoru gam kim shlishim. Gimel shlisha elyon shemashe yesoid dava k'mechuber baguf. Hu mashe shlisha elyon hu beguf the Tiferes. Lachein guf ubris kechat chashivin. Hine shlisha atachten shu b'Tiferes hayesoid nikra ois. The lowest is called ois, just plain ois. It's a sign. Kerei mila nikra ois umila hu rak chelak haTorah de'ever shetzarech la'aser oir ala ulifroya oir hamila bechelak hazeh v'lo yoiser lamata ma'aTorah. When a baby is born, there's 2 skins that block, but it's only the shlisha elyon that's being blocked with the foreskin. The ois pirushay gilui meloshin also boike. It's a ois bris. You have to cut to reveal the chelak in the bris. Ki bechinas with the yisoid gilui. B'shlishem tzoy the yisoid etzam yisoid nikra kayoma should come. In the middle thing, it's called. That's why in the second thing in the Zohar it says, "Kolman dis gazav and noter hai os kayom." It's not only os; it's os kayom. It adds a word. It's not only os; it's os kayom. What does kayoma mean? Come. It stands up. Come. Stands up. Straight. Ki are move and shever is so that's my aim so nikr be yosef shoba kama be kishui. Beside that comes breeze, because a person can never be with his wife without kishui. Otherwise it won't work. V'shlish elyon shobe Tiferes dezo hine Tiferes nikr kodesh bechinas udi so nikr gam kin kodesh v'ana kadisha. Kshich go kol agimol bechinas yach nikr brish mispor gimol pam tzadik. There's all 3 levels together. I'm sorry that I'm reading fast, but the time is short. Behind the Masha Kosovo Yosef. By Yosef, it's Yosef is the tzaddik, and Api Zoyer is called the Yisoid. There's three things. One, he's doing the alumas with his brothers. He's the same. Gimel oid lamaylam as vegam nitzov. Vayna mashu b'shavim echaz b'chinas ateres esoid sheshamu malchus sheb'chinas echav kashvotim b'malchus gam kim k'mesher kosav v'chol b'shalish afar haaretz. So in that shlish, which is in malchus, the shlish of Yisoid, which is in malchus, him and his brothers have everything in common. Shemida shamalchus to shlish the koil the Yisoid. וזה שבעל ממלום בצריך לעשות בשווה אבל כך מיניקום אבל מעשו שלישם צייד יסויד ובסויד קומה בזה עולמי למייך Kama means that it's hard, it stands up. That's in the shlisha amtzoi of the bris. V'oid Yosef v'gam nitzov shlisha elyon diyasoid shubetiferes. V'hine amshach is galas shlisha tach niyasoid shateres yisoid yadeh mila kemachashe hanimel is gala torev amshach is galas shlisha amtzoi diyasoid yadeh komas evra de mashu gam noiter bris loibe atzoa zerel vatolav loibe biyas asurus rechman al-Islam. A baby 8 days old, the parents cut off the foreskin. That's shlishatach. When he gets a little older, he's careful not to be moitzi zeral vatol or have bias asuris. Shekol zeshayach rakasheivru bakoma, which is in the shlishem tzoi. That's where it's nikir the kishui. Hine im nishma bazeh shaloi lizgol bezeral vatol bebias asuris as nimshach mizgal shlishem tzoi gamkein. The ebish the shlishem tzoi, the ebish is yisoid. Amshach lizgal shlish helgen the yisoid shubetiferes upchinish kodesh they should not rabris gam bemuteloid and bishtik shmateres loid. Hinu meskudesh is atzmek shoin the tie belel shabbos kamen astu mit chamal shabbos lo shabbos shabbos kodesh begam zu begdushi seirish mesham shloid shem tayve chat shem sheresh rakol shem shemam shem mitzvah pili biribe lo helen bonim ksherim ugonim veniz bechol aziris megala tefach mechatzet fachaim. Obviously, there's not everything or nothing. He's talking about the highest level of kedusha of Yosef HaTzadik. So a person could be nizir on their level. Every person, in what level they feel that they could obtain. The That's why in the middle one it's called. In the first level, the bris is called ois. Then it's called ois kayama, and then it's called ois kayama kadisha because there's the extra kedusha. Menachem mazgal v'zal shlish elyon shebeshet Tiferes nikar kadisha va'oz yesh by bris shemishpor gimel pam tzadik b'shlem shenimshach mazgal gam shlish elyon disoid. V'zeh ma she'amar b'tchila v'kol man disgazi ikri tzadik. Hainu yedei disgazi b'lavad mila gam kin ikri tzadik. Who is Gazer, Shegazer, Perea, Eura Gasva, Eura Dakmal, Pchenes Ois, he cuts off the two skins, Vikre Tzadik, Shukemis Pershlish, the Brise Bakano, Shlisha Tachten, that Torah Vioris, Arari or Oritz, Kemidus, Shlisha, Yisoid, Kameshkosa, Vachilba, Shlish, Afar Oritz, that's where he's Zech, the Eretz Yisrael, the Afar Oritz, which is Kulba Shalish, that's the Shlisha Tachten. As the pasuk says, "V'chein edei milas gazin nimshachim is gala Torah yoris ara." V'oma yor is the kameshkos of the pasuk Yirshu ara. It's Yerusha dafke. She ein lahefsek. That's the din. And Baba Basra in several places. Matona yesh lahefsek. Yerusha ein lahefsek. Erizeu edei milo machin shenim ein lahefsek. Yevshin shliyo oid built in nimlo. Nimsha zabar loyla b'li hefsek. V'chein kamaykem mashanoit lord. It's Yerusha shein lahefsek. Beautiful word. Simple. He says. In the second or third level, one day is good, one day is bad. Once you take a baby and the 8th day and you cut it off, you can never bring it back. The Gemara says, "Moshe Chalav." We don't know what it means. What does it mean? By Parshas, once you cut it off, you cut it off. That's it. There's, like the kids say, no backsies, no taxis. It's finished. So because bris, once you cut it off, it's ein lo hefsek. So also he's zoiche with that to get the Yerusha of Eretz Yisrael, that he gets Eretz Yisrael on the way of Yerusha she'en lahefsek. V'ach ka'oma koman this guy's v'noter hayos kayoma ikri tzadik v'hoysek ham v'noter shugam noiter abris, because this is harder to make sure not that he has to guard every day. He has to guard his thoughts And so it's a harder. וזה מה שאומר אז כיום אוסל נגד הסגזה שנסגל בבחינת עשה תורה כיום נגד נוטה שנסגל שליש אמצעי ומהי שפירוש זה כדי שליש אמצעי דיסויד גם כן בגילה ומקיימת דיסויד ואך גם התוך הזה מן יוסף לכל ימוי להיקרא צדיק זהו בבחינת צדיק עוד יוסף גבוה. The third level is even higher בבחינת צדיק דשליש אלן שביסויד שבתפארס בבחינת צדיק זהו להיקרא יוסף כל יום עד נוטה הוא אויס Bris ois kayama kedisha. Even Yosef Atzadik didn't get this until he had that challenge. Kan noket ohu belosh nister. Ki bechinas, as you say, then bechinas gilui. That's why in the beginning the Zohar spoke belosh nigla and then belosh nister, because it was something which is very high. Al bechinas yisoch Tiferes bechinas elyon v'lo begila v'kan hoysav teves bris after shishgam shlish elyon. They said nishlam teves bris shuhu gim pam tzadik kanal. Behind a mashanokat can gimel shoynes ois, then kayama, and then kadisha. Shehoyse teves kadisha, ois shlisha tachten, kayama shlisham tzoy, kadisha shlisha elyon yisoch betiferes, kiven the notale ikri tzadik. V'bchinas tzadik the shlisham tzoy, the shlisham tzoy shall notale mebiasura, shall shochab in poitifera. It's interesting. And even though in the Parshas shot in the pasuk, his sign was that he didn't sleep with Eishes Poitifera, but also that was an assign. Yosef Atzadik, Atzadik, but the seven says Shebchen Atzadik to Shlishal and the Yisoid. No Shanoter, but it's a feel Bishta Moteres Lebelvad. Novad, the Kiddush Shatz from Yosef Shash Tasmish, or Yosef Kiddush Shatz from Gezesh, Shabonim Shiolda, Yagakol Katzadikim, Chenim, Shalayolda, I feel Bishnasarov, Kamachkosov, Yosef Yolda, Bonnet Shnei. Bonim etere tov shnasarov shezeh muter min adin kerak b'shnei rov and atzma also l'shamish mutav avakoydem rov muter l'shamish luia shalei tir b'zman rov Yosef Atzadik nizagam bazeh ayin zeh Parshas Miketz u'ma shenishim begilim sham b'siyayta d'shmaya ayin sham. We know that because we learned that. So he says that we find by Yosef that he was careful even with his wife, that he stopped sleeping with his wife 9 months before he know there'll be a Ra'avan, because he wanted to be extra careful in the union of Kedusha. When Apostle Amech Kulam Tzadikim Sha'ar Tzodaya Sheman this guy's Ikri Tzadik Erei Kulam Tzadikim Sevechu Kulam Tzadikim Ariyesh Ben Balachatoim Babanes Rachman Al Tzlan Ela Korchem Mishum Shkulam Nemoilim Varaya Tzadik Yeres Arik Mishkot Yerish Aretz Varaya Kol Man Denoter Shiketzak Tzadik the Shlish Emtzoy Disoy the Min Yosef Shenoter Masha lo shochim in Poitifera v'ikri tzadik v'yosef atzma oid maile shenoter b'mash niskadosh b'mash muter lo kanal shu magia b'shlisha elim v'lachen hu Yosef ha-tzadik b'hei ha-yediyah kanal. There's Yosef tzadik and Yosef ha-tzadik. Yosef tzadik is the fact that he was careful with Potiphar and his wife, and Yosef ha-tzadik with his own wife, he was careful with such a level of kedusha that even though it was 9 months before the Shnas Harov, he didn't want to sleep with her anymore. Omnom le'ezav tzorech.
What's the your Shuar? Which arts?
The Eretz Yisrael.
Which arts?
The bris that the Eibishter made with Avraham Avinu would be schus the Mila. But the schus the Mila, the Yid get Eretz Yisrael. That's what he's saying. Every Yid is called a tzaddik, and every Yid is zocher to have Eretz Yisrael. And that's what the Zohar asked. Every Yid is zocher. Amach kulam tzikkel olam yishoretz. There's plenty that do plenty of bad avedas. And so answers Pashat. Yeah, Yid macht a bris. And is that Adayon?
Right.
Kemat alle Yid machen a bris. Joel Stein was his name. Joel Stein said he's not mega bris. His wife said he's not mega bris. We're mega bris. Geendigt. They made a bris. It's nicht geholfen. There's a beautiful story. Was he someone the New York City chancellor or something? I don't think it's I know. Sorry, go ahead. Ich weiß nicht. I just saw an article, and the name of the article, Joel Stein, it was in the Time magazine.
Doesn't get more Jewish.
Huh?
Doesn't get more Jewish.
Doesn't get any more Joel Stein. But
Want to make a bris for himself?
no, he said he was shumayfen. He was against it. It was not humane. It's not menschlich. From son.
It was a Twitter guy.
Joel Stein was his name. He was a writer. I could be still a writer for Time magazine.
Shabbos I ate by my brother-in-law Levi Heber.
Yeah. Oh.
So he said a story that in France, there was a Russian man that married a French, and he wanted to make a bris. She wanted, he didn't want. בשום פנים ואופן לא. בקיצר, the shliach wrote the Igros Kodesh, and the Igros says he should convince him as soon as possible. And for 20 years, he tried, nothing happened. They moved to California, and they got divorced. So now the kid is 20 years old. He came to Cornell to meet his mother, and Levi made him a priest.
Wow.
I'll send the video to your wife after the shir.
Ishkayach. Wow.
Who Levi Heber?
Yeah.
The one who
Wow.
Levi-
Yeah, the Moyle, his brother-in-law. There's a story that he brings, Rav Zevin brings in a sefer, that there were Chassidim from the Choyz Lublin, and there was someone in their town.
Rabbi, from which parsha?
It's in Parshas Lech Lech.
No,
You look it up. It's the last story in Lech Lech.
Next one, we'll put up.
So they went to the Rebbe and they said, "Look, this guy, he's a Moser. It's the worst thing. He informs the government against Jews." They're asking the Rebbe they should give him a bracha that he should go to Olam Emes. Huh?
To help or not to help?
No, that he should go to Olam Emes and stop making trouble. So they gave the kvittel and they wrote the guy's name, the mother's name. He looks, he says, "What? He's like a kohen. He's standing on the mizbeach and he's bringing a korban. You want me to chas v'shalom give him the opposite of a bracha?" At the end, they thought maybe he's stroking. They tried again and again. He said, "He's a kohen standing on the mizbeach." Guy is a big balaved and he's making trouble and he always informs the government against Jews. Right before the Chassidim were going back to their town in Ukraine, they tried again their luck. They brought again the capital to the Chayzer. Chayzer looked. He said, "This guy is a dimma foolish in Gemara. Maridim v'loy mailim." Goes down. That's it. Maridim v'loy mailim.
Take him to the mikvah, it doesn't come back up.
Yeah, exactly. Take it to mikveh, it doesn't come back up. That's it.
Yeah, he's there.
So this guy, you have to put him 6 feet under.
Wait, then the first two times you say.
Oh, the first 2 times. So when the Chassidim came back, first the right away taka, the guy died. And they found, well, what happened? They found out that guy had a baby, and that morning he brought the kid into Brisa Shel Avraham Avinu. So the Chayzer saw Baruch Kodshoy, this guy right now, he's like a kohen that's bringing his son on the mizbeach.
Yeah.
So how could you? So even the worst guy was a Masur, and then at the end, Taka, the Chayzer told the Chassidim that they were right. He gave him a bracha that he should go 6 feet under. But at that time, when he was giving his son a bris, he was like a kohen standing on the mizbeach. So the kid says. So now we have the whole. By the way, a lot of times you think that the Rebbe's father was too bekitzer, but when you put yourself in his words, he's not bekitzer. You see what he's saying, and it's very geschmack. And basically, so bottom line, he's saying there's 3 levels in the bris, and he brings from the Mishnah Chassidim that the avid itself is 3/3. And there is keeping the bris, cutting off the foreskin when the baby's 8 days old, and that's ein lo hefsek. And from that, amach kulam tzadikim loylam yirshu aretz. And then there is the second darga, which is from zer levatol abiyus asuris, and then the third, which is to be nizer, to do kedusha even when he's with his wife. And that's why the Zohar says 3 times the same thing, because it's talking about 3 different things. And the second time the Zohar is more emphatic. It's not only ois, it's ois kayoma. And the third time it's ois kayoma kadisha. And the second time we learn it from Yosef, but it's from Yosef Betifer and his wife. And the third time we call him Yosef Hatzadik. It's from Yosef with his own wife. Beterim Tovish Nasarov. Okay. Now let's read the last 3 paragraphs over here. Wow, we're lucky. The plane is not gegangen. Wow. Omnam leise Tzarech Hevekan man de noter me Yosef Hevekan Maidin and Akl Yerusha Sorat Mashkos Vegam Kemois Bris Los Lamaseret Shazed Daim Mad and this Gaza Balavad Shlish Atach Natora. I said Lama Hevegam Ke man de noter Tochazim and Yosef. If you just at the baby is 8 days old and you give the bris, it's good enough. Yesh Lama Kerebe Posa Kan Ksiv Vegama Kemois is Brisi. Umashi Tzoy Niker Bris. Shemispar Gimel Pam Tzadik B'Chol Gimel Gimel Bechinas Da Gimel Shalishim D'Yisrael Lachein Hevegam Ad Anoter Ikri Tzadik, Tachazim Yosef, Ikri Tzadik, Yosef HaTzadik, that the Zohar holds that Tabamis, if you just do the plain mitzvah, you get, but it's still, the other 2/3 are connected. Ubemis Yishlam, Shigam Yerushas Oret Tola Begola Bekola Gimel Bechinas the Yisoid, Hagimel Bechinas Tzadik, who carried Posek Siv, Eis Eretz Canaan, Eis Eretz Mgerim, Asher Goruba. So there's 3 dargas. So the Rebbe explains that, adds a little bit to what his father is saying. But again, Gimel and Yonim Shabbat is there's 3 things: Kiyam Mitzvahs Mila, number 2, Shmiras Abris Midvarim Asurim, and number 3, Shmiras Abris boy from the Kadosh Atzam Muterloch. The Rebbe says, Mechadgis on the one hand, Medubar Oidas Dargis Shayna Shechalukaz Amazem Akotza Lakotza. On the one hand, Kiyam Mitzvahs Mila Reza B'Shlemis Al-Zakov and Yisrael. L'chein Ikrem Tzadikim Kolman. This guy's Ikra Tzadik Amach Kolam Tzadikim Miksiv Kumashkotza Gambazer Lech L'chav B'Chikuli Yisrael Tzadikim Nine B'Ho Kamach Hayovin is B'Yisrael Kamach Hatoyin Kamarishan the Avrin Al Pikude De Reisa. The Zohar says, what? Every Yid is a Tzadik? Why? Just because in the bagel store they call you Tzadik, you're a Tzadik? There's plenty of Yidden that are not Tzadikim. So Elo Kadis Gazru Ikra Tzadikai Vada Kula Tzadikim. Mitzad the Indian Bris, who calls all the Yidden and Nizan the Bris, Ba'amach Kol Tzadikim Loylam Yeshiaretz. The Rebbe explains, Allahoyesh, Indian Zesh, Kob Neisra Makayim Mitzas Mila, Ubad Goshi, Yisayr, B'derenu Zeh, Kefisharem, Memuchash, Sabnei Yisrael, Shemachayri, Moscha, Basel. The Rebbe was talking to Sich in the late 70s. Shagam Acher, Shabri Yosef, Megimul Doidas, Sheredifas, Al-Ninyon, Yadus, Makayim Mitzas Mila, Metoich, Mesiris Nefesh. Metoich Mesiris Nefesh. They're doing it. And then some of them are losing their jobs over it because they're going to see that they have a brezanya, and then they tell their friends, and then the father loses his job, and they're doing it anyway. They're doing it. Here, there's a story that the story is told. I forgot who told it, but Rav Zilber, I think, told the story that there was a moil in Russia that they did a mila for a baby, but the baby was not 8 days. The baby was a few months old. As soon as he finished the bris, as he just finished bandaging, the mother grabbed the baby away from him and started kissing the baby. She started to cry. What happened? And she said that when she had the baby, she realized that it's not going to be easy to get a moil into the mila, and her husband was saying it's dangerous. He's going to lose a job. And the husband and everyone was against it. But she was determined she wants her son to get a bris. So she made a shvua that she's not going to kiss the child even once until he has a bris. Because it hurt so much that she couldn't, so Taka, she worked. She found the moil and she found Taka the situation, and they made the bris. And he was a few months old, and she never kissed the child even once. This was the first time she was able to kiss the child. So this Mitzad Echad, the Inyan Bris, every Yid has that schus. And the other hand, Shmiras Habris, which we're counting as all part of the same mitzvah, is much more difficult. But however, Lidach on the other hand, the whole idea of the long galus is because of this sin, and in order to bring Mashiach, we're trying to be Makabetz Nitchi Yisrael is through being careful about this thing. So emphasizing this mitzvah. I mean, that's the idea of Shoiv Vimtat, which the weeks we're in right now. So on the one hand, bris is a very simple thing that every Yid, Joel Stein is doing it, and the other hand, Shmiras Bris is something very complex. Medav zayin on Oved Hashem to get there. But however, Lidach Isa Kima Shekolam Adregis Nikra B'Shem Tzadik Al Yedei V'Amach Kulam Tzadikim Al Yedei Kiyum Mitzvahs Mila Dergos Sheyosef Shenikra Tzadik Yedei Shmiras Abris Midvorim Asurim V'Adrege De Yosef Atzadik V'Hei Yedei Yedei Shemekadash Atzim Mutaloi Al Kochach Tzarech Lem Shesh Keshe V'Sheichel B'Neim U'Befrat Apima Shekosav Adoini Ovi Moiri V'Rebi Bris Gematria Gimel Pomim Tzadik Hainu Shegimel Madreges Nechlolas Yachid Begematria De Bris V'Seirem Zo Shegimel Madreges HaKeneged Gimel HaShlishim Sheb Yesoid Hainu Shem Gimel Shlishim Shel Inyan Echad Shebazem Mudgesh Od Yoser HaKeshe V'Sheichel B'Neim. I think at this point the Rebbe is not trying to be mechadish anything in his father's words. He just wants to bring out the richness of it. Then, on the one hand, Joel Stein is doing a bris, and this guy who Chamilnik, who the Chayzer says at the end that this guy should go 6 feet under, is doing a bris for his son. And the other hand, bris, we're talking about Yosef Tzaddik, Yosef Hat Tzaddik. It's a big avoid. It's not easy. Yet it goes into the same mitzvah, and it's like 3/3 of the same aver, 3/3 of the same mitzvah. It's all shayches to the same thing. Yesh levar ze behegdem abir binyan bris. Bris begematri gim pom Tzaddik. Shmitzas milu nikre b'shem bris. Kloshna kosa bris befsarchem le bris oilam. Mevur v'lekut ha'Torah v'pirish hakosa brisi le'ovrcha bebris. Hey Shmulik, I know you like this piece in Lekut Torah. It's a very geschmack piece. K'may l'mashol shnei oyevim shekoritz and bris b'neim sheletifsek avosam shilu hoya adov v'shavat olo b'kayim ata lo hoya tzrichem lichlis bris b'neim el lefish yireim shem yavut l'adov v'rabot l'ava shem yigrem eza menim b'chutz v'idei akrisas bris ti avosam ava nitzchus baltomit lo'olam vod. ולא יפרידם שום מניע מבייס ומבחוץ. והיינו לפני שאויסן ביניהם קשר אמיץ וחוזת שיסייחתו ויסקשרו באבוסם בקשר נפלא למעלה מן הטעם והדס. ואף שעל פי הטעם והדס היה צורך לפסק אהבה או לגרם איזה סינא, אף על פי כן מחמס הקריסס בריס מוכרח ליאס אבוסם לעד קיימס ועל כל פשועים תחס אהבה זו וקשר ויעמד זה לפי שבו בבריס ויסקשס כאילו נעשה לבוסר אחד ממש, וכמו שלא יוכר לפסק, אבוסר על עצמו כוח, לא יפסק מעל חברה, ולכן נקרא בלושן קריסס בריס, כמו שכוסף ושקורסו, אס העגל ויעברו בין בסורף, כלומר ליאס שניהם עברים בתוך גוף אחד, ליאס לאחודם, that's the משל, ודגמוסה בנמשל, קריסס בריס ויסקשס, לקדוש ברוך הוא בישראל, לא ירדס אבא שלא יהיה, ונסייכם מבדילים כחלק, השם עמי. This is what the Alter Rebbe says. What's a bris? Just like a bris they made in those days. They took a cow and they cut it in half. What happened? The cow died now, right? So they said that me and you, that the two people that made this bond of love, that now we love each other for a good reason. But what happens if a few years later we'll have no reason to love each other? Maybe there'll be a reason the opposite of love should happen. But we're making a covenant that we're like one. And one person can never stop loving himself. A normal, healthy person could never stop loving himself. A person, it's a nebach, it's a machal sanefesh. A normal person likes themselves. I'll call Peshoim, the pasuk says the chas ha'ava. It's a negative, but that's a fact that the Torah says. It's a fact that a person, it doesn't. In other words, they know their shortcomings, but still they love themselves. Okay, listen, I have a chisaron. But if you see someone else has a chisaron, scoundrel. Guy's like low life. Yeah. But if I have the same issue, I'm not a low life. I'm a good guy with an issue. If he has that issue, he's a low life. So the Christian Bris says that other person and me are one. And therefore, just like myself, I'm never going to have seen it to myself because I have a chesaron. I'm going to say I have a chesaron and I have to work on it. So the other person is going to be the same thing. That's krisis bris. Even if the Yidden have an seichem avdilim, they enter in a krisis bris in the Eibishter. That they can never chas v'sholem be the opposite of Abba from the Eibishter to Bnei Yisrael. That's the idea of mitzvahs milah, which is a bris between the Eibush and the Yidden. Brisi b'vsarcha lebris oilam mudgeshes haiskashus atzmas d'Yisrael ha'kadosh baruch hu shehi betokfa b'shlimusa gam b'mayim v'damatza shapitam v'das yesh mokem lechalishus chashus yisrael b'skashus shebeneim kivin shemetzius ha'mitzvahs b'nei Yisrael ha'mitzvahs achas ha'kadosh baruch hu Yisrael v'kutshabrichu kul echad. The bris reveals how the Eibush and the Yid is really one. So what do you mean, avonos, chatoyim, peshoyim? What do you mean? The Yid and the Eibush is one. They love each other. What do you mean, the sins? But they love each other. They're one. That love is revealed through the bris. The gematria the bris. Afa bishe gimel anyan shebe mele yesh gimel dag shana shachlog zameze. Mekol makom kulam nikre betoy tzadik. Shemoyer Liskasher Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Parshas, what does tzaddik mean? Connected to the Eibishter. Kibikiyum mitzvahs mila kipshutoi. Mudgeshes iskashers atzim is Yisrael makadosh baruch hu the bris. Vaysofa shedes milis bris iskashers Yisrael he betachnas Hashem es gam bepoel ubegolu. It's like 3/3 of the same thing. The cut in the skin means that this is a Jew. This is a Jewish child. When the foreskin gets cut, this is a Jewish child. But when the person grows up and is nizer with their bris, so it brings out b'shleimus and begolui the connection with Eibishter. He said to him as a shekim mitzvahs mila kipshutei gam l'sinas koyach b'achona v'tzchol l'dagas yis adal shemila shmiras abris hena shmira minam built to mitzvah and shmira even the kaddish atzon mutar. The truth is, the first third, when you give your baby a bris at 8 days old, you give them the koyach later to do the second third and the third third. Hena shdeisha pulas amila. Shabbat Geshes is Kashas Atzmi, the Srom Kadosh Baruch about Latar Messiah Noise. Kadosh Baruch Oise Lagia, the Shlemes is Kasham, Kadosh Baruch Gam Apel Golui, Shmida Sagis, Vedez Nasa Gam in the Yorsh or it's Yerusha Shen Laefsek, the Pearl Bagolug will Shen Achre Golus. So the Rebbe is saying that there's a few nakudas that show that these 3 mitzvahs are not 3 separate mitzvahs, that they're 3/3 of the same mitzvah. And the last point that I was saying is that when you give the baby the bris, that gives them the koyach to go to later have the second darge, and the later even the third darge. Yesh lo yitzel avar gimel madrege shemila gam negel close v'dashim shel Yisrael. Shekim shemitzas mila kshurim etzam etzius Yisrael. Kolman dis gazerik tzadik diksevam kolum tzadik kolayim shoretz mistaber laim sheprotem madreges the mila virusha shoretz kolum protem madreges ba'avodas shel Yisrael eretz chayfetz v'yishlem abir bezeh pima shenem bekeshel matan toira va'ata im shemaya tishmo bekoylu shmartem as blisi. The Eibishter says there'll be 3 things. Number 1, v'yisalum zgulam kolam. Number 2, v'atam timle mamlechas koinim. And number 3, v'goy kodesh. When again we give them madreges zgulam kolam mamlechas koinim v'goy kodesh mavur bedrush chzidish zgulam kolam. In was is gul mekoi alma amal some the regis knesses from tzad atzma b'chinas malchus. Amlachas koyanim koi ale yiloshnat b'Yisrael the kimeter mitzvah shekosam b'chinas hachach ma'aratz machach mitzvahkes. Koi kodesh koi ale yiloshnat b'Yisrael avoid the kaddish atzma b'mutalach. Kadisa b'gemara kolam kaim divrei chacham divrei seferim nikra kodesh atzma b'mutalach shekosam b'chinas hakeser pnimis hakeser. The Gmasam from these 3 things, but mitzvahs mila, ki mitzvahs mila kshurim etzam etzir shebnei Yisrael, yisrael is gula, malus is from mitzad atzm, shmiras abris al pi dini atoyre, kinegis mamlachas koinim kim atoyre mitzvahs, shmiras abris both in the kaddish atzam umutla, kinegis v'goy kodesh, kinegis these 3 things. Yom tekyoyis ha'shayich the mitzvahs mila al pi mavur bedrushim anal, shi'ilu the kaddish atzam umutla, shbedivri seferim, l'gav divri toyre, kol derech ha'i ubedugmas ilu the priya, l'gav asoret sa'olo, sh'arasoret sa'olo, in yashmir medora masurim en atoyre. Priya, which is a sort of oira dak, we in kaddish atzmacha b'muterlach. Yeshikatz is the mashikosov. Bottom line, the Rebbe is connecting these 3/3 of the mitzvah to each other, explaining how all 3 are really sort of connected. Yeshikash is the mashikosov amar b'bir gimel madreges shebemila. Hainu mashikosov b'yosef yisoid. In a nacht ma'alim alum metechasad v'in kol ma'al masav gam netzav yesh b'gimel b'chinas mashum alim b'yachid echad. Shushavalahem, Beis Shulamaylamem, Shulamasan Kama, Gimel Oilamayla, Vegam Nitzava, Mamshech Levi Shagamala Gimel, Vuini Kadashatz al Motelach, Mevur, Bedrusha Chasidus, Binya Baatam Nitzavim, Valderech Mashakasa, Vehine Kama, Venamasa Vegam Nitzav, Atam Nitzavim, Kama Venamasa Vegam Nitzav, Shakoma Vegam Nitzav, Mashmi Ilu Acherilu, Shnitzavim, Vaim the Pchenes Kamas Kufa. Pines v'atzma serin soif shebepnimis hakeser. V'piz yishlema shegimul madreges v'nachnu al nalma malumim kol malumase v'gam netzav v'mechuv l'gimul madreges malumim malumim kol madreg amayim b'damatzev shebetchilus avoida. Pisam l'zgula kol malumase mamlachas koinim ilosh nasekim teramitzes b'chinas chachman v'nitzav v'goy kodesh ilosh nase the kaddish atzchum mutla b'chinas keser. Okay, so again to summarize. Remarkable piece of Zohar.
Yeah.
That the Zohar is basically saying, the way that Rebbe's father is explaining, that there is the mitzvahs milah has 3 parts, and that's why the Zohar says 3 times. And Taka, when a Yid does a mitzvah milah, the Zohar says that for that he becomes a tzaddik. Even though there's they do a lot of sins, but because they give the baby the bris, they're called a tzaddik and la'olam yishuaretz. And the Rebbe's father said because Ein Lo Hefsek, Yerusha Ein Lo Hefsek, and Abris Ein Lo Hefsek. And the point of what we're learning tonight is this, just like the Eved has 3/3, the mitzvah has 3/3 to the mitzvah when the baby's born, when he grows up, and when he gets married. And each one, it really are connected to the other one, because there's the etzem connection to the Eibishter, then it comes out more begoloi, and then comes out more begoloi. A goy is not capable of controlling himself. Whatever, he's a goy, he's a goy. So because he's a goy, but a Jew, because he has mitzvah, gereres mitzvah, because his parents gave him the milah when he was 8 days, he has the power to miskadish himself, the bias asuris, and then he's power even to miskadish himself, the bias matoris and oifen shel kedusha yiseda. So Amela, these 3 parts of the mitzvah are not 3 separate mitzvahs. It's really one part of one mitzvah. The first mitzvah, which is the inyan of bris, the connection of the Eibishter and the Eden, comes out more and more begolui through the other 2/3 of the mitzvah's milah. Maybe shall help them that Taka when the weeks of Shovim, and through learning about this and koching in it and doing in it, that we should be zoicha Taka, that you should be in the schus of the